Alice Alicia Jones, and I'm the lead minister of Rays of Healing, and I welcome you to this presentation of Reconnective Healing. This is something that we have not had in years and years and years. And I think, and I don't think I'm being facetious about it, maybe in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 years ago. So I am absolutely thrilled to have Rob Koenig. And what I didn't know, I thought he was somewhere around here, but I thought it was Virginia Beach. He comes to us from Long Island. Long Island. I actually sound like a native Long Islander.
Well done, Alice.
Okay. Anyway, just thrilled to have you. And and I will, like I said, I'm going to let you embellish whatever you want to say, and welcome all the people that just came on: Karen and Marilyn and Edith and Sylvia and Wendy. Good. Thank you.
So thank you, Alice, and thank you to the entire congregation at Rays of Healing Church for welcoming me tonight. It is such an honor to be with you. And tonight, I will be introducing you to Reconnective Healing, as Alice said. In many ways, Reconnective Healing is a revolutionary, powerful, yet elegantly simple approach to healing. At its essence, it's a non-physical energy interaction, and it's designed to help us return to a higher state of balance, harmony, and well-being in all aspects of our life. And it is currently practiced all across the globe, on every continent, as a matter of fact. And it is, I believe, changing the way we approach and understand fundamental concepts in energy healing. And this evening, what I'd like to do is really explore with you the ease in which it can be accessed, the ways in which it can enrich our lives, and also the many aspects that make it so unique within the world of energy healing today. But before we do that, as Alice suggested, I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about myself and my journey towards reconnective healing. Professionally speaking, if we go back to the beginning of my career, I've been practicing as a school psychologist for about 25 years now. And but about 8 years ago, it's really not so long ago, about 8 years ago, something pretty extraordinary happened. I got into a rut. And what I mean by that is I found myself at a point and a position in my life where I felt stuck. And I'll tell you, the prevailing mood that had taken over me at that moment was I felt that my life was very ordinary. I felt that there must be something more. There has to be something else that I'm not aware of, that I haven't yet accessed, because on the external, on the outside, everything was very neatly arranged in my life. I wasn't in trauma or crisis. I had a steady job. I was married with kids, and I had the house, and everything seemed...
Rob, something happened.
Yeah, I was muted. Someone muted me for a moment.
Oh, that must have been me accidentally.
Okay. How much did you miss?
Yeah, about a sentence.
Oh, okay. So what I was starting to describe this time frame about 8 years ago, where I really fell into this kind of place of stagnation, where I realized and recognized that there was something missing in my life. I felt like there had to be something more. I really went into this kind of phase where I began searching for deeper meaning in my life. I wasn't ever a very spiritual person. I wasn't a very religious person. I was very left brain, very scientifically oriented. But I felt that there was something deeply missing. I call it my midlife existential crisis, and it was in that moment that I began to become very curious about metaphysics, spirituality, and really exploring human potential. I wanted to know, what are we capable as human beings? As a psychologist, I was always interested in the mind and the relationship between the mind and the heart and the the experience of our lives. But I wanted to go deeper, and I felt a need to go deeper. And I don't know if you're all familiar with the Harry Potter books and movies, but there's this concept in those stories about there are people that are considered muggles, and there are people that are considered magical, right? So the muggles are your ordinary, run-of-the-mill human being, and then you've got this other magical world that's just beyond the ordinary. And for me, I felt that I had lived in this muggle world for so long, and I was craving and seeking that magic in my life. And this was a period where I really felt like I proverbially went down the rabbit hole, and I started reading voraciously everything I can get my hands on. I was watching videos, listening to speakers, and I was trying to find ways to enrich my life. And as things started to expand for me, and I started, becoming exposed to more and more perspectives, one fateful summer, I was turned on to the book, The Reconnection: Heal Others, Heal Yourself by Dr. Eric Pearl. And that was a changing point for me. I don't know if any of you I don't know if any of you have read Dr. Pearl's book, The Reconnection, but it tells his story. It tells his story. It's really an autobiographical account of his life as a successful chiropractor when one day in the early 90s, things started changing, and he was witnessing miraculous healings and transformations with his clients, only to later discover that he had tapped into a universal potential that exists within all of us. It wasn't that he had discovered that he had a special gift that was all unto himself, but he had learned that we have the capacity to bring about levels of healing in our own lives and in the lives of those around us very naturally, very simply. And he would eventually call this interaction that he was having and that he was seeing other people start to have reconnective healing. So in the next several months and years to follow his revelation, he went on to participate in over a dozen international studies that really started resulting in jaw-dropping outcomes. And the scientific community started really taking notice that there was something very unique happening in this interaction that he had tapped into. And I want to just share with you just a few of the findings that took place within the scientific world as they studied what was happening with Dr. Pearl and his clients, and then later other individuals that were tapping into this natural capacity. Well, first, they saw that there was communication taking place between the heart of the facilitator, meaning EKGs hooked up and watching activities of heart waves. That activity was showing up in the brain waves of the individuals that they were interacting with. And at that point, they had never witnessed communication between hearts and brains. They had seen hearts and hearts come into resonance. They'd seen brain activity, but had never seen this communication between a heart and a brain before. And so that was a good indication that something unique was happening. There was a resonance and an entrainment that was taking place during this interaction. Then they went on to look at how this process was impacting the very DNA structure of who we are in animals, in people, in plants. And they found that during this facilitation, the DNA itself not only was restructuring, but it was actually healing. They were seeing that defects in DNA samples that they were studying were actually correcting themselves in this interaction. So it became very apparent very quickly that something on a very deep physiological level was also unfolding during this exchange. I'm just going to mention a few more because I'm going to tell you, it was these scientific findings that allowed me, being a very left-brained person at that time, to start to, accept and incorporate the possibilities of this in my life. One of the other findings was when they watched brainwave activity and they watched how those patterns were evolving, they were seeing that the brainwave activities of those interacting with this reconnective healing process were mimicking that of master meditators, monks that had studied meditation their entire lives. They were watching this what they called quiescence, this state of calm, quiet, and stillness that was actually showing up in brainwave activity within days of people interacting for the first time with this reconnective healing process. And to go on even further, I love the scientific piece of this because I think it ties these two worlds of spirituality and science together so beautifully. There's this phenomenon in living organisms called biophotons. Biophotons mean light coming from living organisms, biophoton. And they have known for many years now that every cell within a living organism gives off a certain level an emission of biophotons. We are actually light beings, and science has proven it. And they know that the biophotons and the output of biophotons can be measured to be a reflection of our health and our vitality. And what they found is that as individuals were interacting with these reconnective healing frequencies, that the biophotonic output really raised to much higher levels than we typically see within human beings. So I can go on, but let's suffice it to say there were just study after study that were really giving indications that something legitimately significant was taking place in this interaction. And so, like I said, as I took this information in, I was able to integrate my newfound fascination with spirituality and metaphysics and my foundation in the scientific, concrete, left-brain kind of perspective. And then Dr. Pearl said something that I just couldn't ignore. He said that every single human being has the capacity to facilitate healing at the highest level, just like he had discovered he was able to do serendipitously with his clients. And so I took that as a challenge. I said, okay, I don't think I could do something like that because I'm just the ordinary me. But I learned that he was doing trainings all around the world, and I waited patiently to see if he was going to come to New York, where I live. And even though he hadn't come to New York or wasn't scheduled to be in New York, I saw that he was going to be in Toronto, Canada, which, as wasn't a very long plane trip. So I took the bait. I flew to Canada, and I spent a weekend at a training with, at that time, there was probably about 400 to 500 people that were there. And all I can say is that I witnessed things that weekend that redefined reality for me. It redefined not only what I was capable of, but I saw that everyone around me, hundreds of people around me, were able to do this. They were able to bring this into an experience that was tangible and accessible, regardless of their background, regardless of whether or not this was the first time they'd ever dabbled in anything that would be considered energy healing, or whether or not they were 20 years old or 75 years old. It really didn't matter. Everyone was finding their way into this new resonance. And I walked out of that training that weekend back in November of 2013 with a new mission in my life to make sure that everyone that I could tell about this knew that they have this incredibly deep and profound potential within them. And so I had really made it very a clear decision at that point that I was going to find a way to practice reconnective healing and give people the opportunity to know this for themselves. And so that's what I did. I kept my job as a school psychologist. In fact, I still am a school psychologist. But I started my reconnective healing practice, and it grew over time. And I think I probably told everyone that I ran into, either a friend, acquaintance, or a stranger. I told them about reconnective healing. And as my practice grew, I also cultivated a kind of a deep desire to be a part of the training process to introduce this capacity to others, not just offer someone the opportunity to experience it and benefit from the experience of it, but I wanted people to know that they could do this. And so I began to train with Dr. Pearl, train to become a facilitator, an instructor. And lo and behold, over the next several years, I just kept going with it and began to travel with Dr. Pearl to Europe a few times, all across the country, up into Canada. And I eventually, 2 years ago, ended up in the position of co-director for Dr. Pearl's organization, which is called the Reconnection. And so that's what I'm doing currently. I still practice as a school psychologist during the day. I am also a facilitator of Reconnective Healing and the co-director of Dr. Pearl's organization. And if that wasn't enough, 2 years ago, I co-founded with two beautiful partners of mine the Holistic Center for Soulful Living, which is a holistic wellness center right here in Smithtown. I'm actually sitting inside of it right now. And so I have to say, I attribute all of this evolution in my life to what Reconnective Healing has opened me up to. And so my life has changed in amazing ways. My health has improved, my relationships have deepened, and ultimately my career took on a whole new life of its own. So let's dive into Reconnective Healing, if we can. I want to talk to you about some of these very unique, distinctive characteristics that really drew me in and really opened up my eyes. You know, often when we think of energy healing, we think of healing practices with clients. We think of working professionally. Somebody comes in and you offer them a healing session. But what I've learned is that Reconnective Healing, yes, it is a professional practice, but it offers the opportunity for a daily access point to living a more enriched life of harmony and balance. In many ways, I believe it's a gateway to a deeper awareness of our multidimensional existence. It's also an access point to discovering our innate worthiness and our undeniable connection to one another. I believe that Reconnective Healing is here to raise our conscious evolution and remind us the truth of who we really are. And I have to say, what's so interesting is in preparing for my talk today, I went onto the website for the Rays of Healing Church, and I read over the mission statement and the call to action. And I just loved the beautiful synergy between what I read and what I'm here to discuss with you today. So I want to quote some of the things that I see on the Rays of Healing website. You speak of coming together to share friendship and raise consciousness. You speak of providing divine healing energy to as many beings as possible in service to spirit and humanity. You speak of learning how to raise our vibrational energy as a means to live our best lives with a healthy mind, body, and spirit. Well, I'm here to tell you that all of those things, I believe, are part of what Reconnective Healing is here to show us. Furthermore, our dear Alice Jones wrote a book entitled Own Your Power Day by Day. And I read a little bit I didn't get a chance to read your book, Alice, but I read about your book. And I know that you reference the importance of the invisible energy field that surrounds us. And to me, when I learned about Reconnective Healing, it was a call to action to do just that. Own our power through our access to that invisible energy field that surrounds us. A field that is pulsing with frequencies of energy, light, and information that are readily accessible to all of us. And, you know, in essence, it's an intelligent force that is inviting us to step into our power and reconnect to our pure essence, which, as Alice points out in her book, is love, balance, and harmony. And, you know, you heard me just now reference energy, light, and information. And I want to make sure that we all understand the relationship between these components within the invisible field that we're speaking of. You know, energy is the fabric of existence. It's the formless structure within and without all things. Light, however, is the vehicle of communication. It's that through which the information of the universe arises. So we are, in essence, we're talking about the intelligence or consciousness of the universe. And when we tap into this network of energy, light, and information, we're accessing the language of the universe, the language that promotes order, balance, and harmony. And when we resonate with those frequencies, it brings us back into our pure state, our pure essence. In other words, it reconnects us to it. So the truth is, human beings have been working with energy for thousands of years. We know this. The traditional energy healing techniques that we have used and continue to employ certainly have benefit, and they continue to serve us. And one can't deny that. For those of you who practice energy healing modalities, you know that there are benefits for, through a myriad of different approaches. But what I'm asking you tonight is, what if we could access more? What if we could transcend our techniques and our modalities and actually become the healing itself? Many of us agree that we exist in a time of great acceleration, accelerating evolution, accelerated transformation. We hear about the idea of the shift, right? It's been talked about for a few decades now that we're going through a huge shift. And, all you have to do is look at what's happening in culture, right? We look at mindfulness on the cover of Time magazine, meditation practices becoming commonplace, yoga, holistic practices, even Eastern philosophies are no longer on the fringe. So yes, we are evolving, and this is a time of great expansion. And I believe that Reconnective Healing is a product of this evolution. It's inviting us to own our power and transcend the limits and boundaries that have existed before. So tonight, I'm really going to challenge you to perhaps think differently about healing. Some of the concepts might also challenge your beliefs or even your current practices, but I simply ask that you listen with an open mind and decide for yourself what resonates and what does not. I am not here to try to convince you of anything, and I do want you. I do want to open a door for you to consider walking through, but allow the information that I share tonight just to kind of settle in and see how it resonates. So let's begin. Let's talk about more of the specific aspects of Reconnective Healing to give you more of a taste of what I'm actually referring to. I've mentioned it several times, but let's talk about it. One of the hallmark features of Reconnective Healing is the releasing of techniques and rituals themselves. So instead of following steps or remembering those techniques, through Reconnective Healing, we are simply exploring our natural connections to this intelligent field through expanding our awareness and letting our attention be our guide. So I'd like to actually explore that with you right now. And for those of you who have already learned energy healing practices or techniques and you practice them, I want you just for this evening, I want you to allow yourself to follow my guidance with a brand new set of eyes, almost like a childlike curiosity where you're really, you're curious to explore, you don't know what to expect. And it's interesting, I bring up children. Children can access the gifts of Reconnective Healing even more naturally than adults. And I think that tells you something. When children can walk away owning this capacity, I think it's a profound statement about where this resides within a human being, that natural state of connectivity. So let's play, if you will. When we train in Reconnective Healing and we give people the opportunity to step into their knowingness around this interaction, we offer a variety of exercises to sharpen and broaden our awareness of the healing frequencies that are present all around us. And these exercises, in a way, are kind of like training wheels on a bicycle. They're meant to be released. They're not meant to be remembered and to be copied, but it's meant to be a little bit of an introduction, a guidance to start to explore. So if you guys want to do this with me for a moment, I want you to let your hands just kind of relax at your sides. Now, if I was standing, you'd see, that my arms are just relaxed at my side. If you're sitting in a chair, just let your hands come down alongside of you, and just let your hands and arms kind of fall into a very natural, uncontrolled position. And you'll notice that if you bring your hands up and you don't move them, there's this natural curve, this natural anatomical position in our hands. They're not like this. We don't walk around when our hands are at ease like this. There's just this natural, soft kind of curvature of the hands. And I want you to bring your hands up like I am, just right in front of you with palm facing palm. And let's do this for a moment. Let's just take a few seconds just to bring our attention into the palms of our hand. And let's just see what we notice when we just simply bring our attention there. Even if it's just noticing the air current surrounding the outside edge of our palms and the backs of our hands, flowing through our fingers. Just take a moment in the stillness just to observe, just to pay attention. And I want you to keep your eyes open. If you can, stay alert and attentive. And bring your attention, using your eyes, look at your hands. Keep your focus, a gentle focus, on your hands as you just observe and notice if any sensations arise. And there's no right or wrong way to experience or feel this. I just want to bring your attention here for starters. And now, if you will, I want you to imagine a rubber band that's attached to the center of one palm and stretches and attaches to the center of your other palm. So now you've got this rubber band connected between the centers of both of your hands. And now gently, I want you to start to stretch that rubber band. Just stretch it and see if you can actually sense and feel that resistance, that elasticity, as if it was a real rubber band and you were stretching it. See if you can feel and stretch a little further, and see if it even gets stronger, that tension. And now let it come in a little bit. Let it just ease. So now you feel that tension start to release, and then maybe you want to try again to pull it out. And see if you can just tune into the sensation between the palms of your hands as you just let that movement become natural, but also you're exploring the different sensations of movement. So by a nod of the head, can anybody notice and feel the different pressure and any changes in the sensations in your hand when you do that? Just with a nod of your head, if you're noticing any of that. Okay, excellent. And if you're not, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It's just, this is just exploration. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's very clear. Okay, so now relax your hands for a moment. Put them down on your lap. I want to try something else. I want you to let's take our left hand, just so we can all do this in unison. And I want you to hold it out in front of you as if there's a dinner plate resting in your hand, like you're about to serve someone a plate of food and the dinner plate is resting in your hand. Now picture a kind of nice sized plate that goes out beyond the outside of the perimeter of your hand. And I want you to look down at that plate, and I want you to imagine that there's a clock face on the top of that plate. So the numbers of the clock. Forget about the hands. We're going to let the hands disappear and just see the numbers. There's a 12 at the top of your plate, and then 1, 2, 3, and the numbers go all the way around the plate. Now with your right hand, I want you to take it on top and hover just above where the 12 would be. So if I turn to the side, you can see the 12 is going to be a little bit above, on the top. So, and I want you just to stay there and see if you can just sense whatever you sense over that 12. You can even very slowly just move your hand and see if you can kind of tune into whatever that 12 feels like. And now let's slowly start to move our hand around the edge of the clock from the 12 to the 1, and then from the 1 to the 2. And I want you to see if you can notice any different sensation when you arrive at different numbers. Is there a different sensation at 2 than there was at 1? And then what about at 3 and at 4? And perhaps even backtrack and go back. If you're at 5, go back to 4. And then maybe continue on in either direction for 1 or 2 numbers and work your way all the way around. And again, you're just placing your attention and seeing if you notice any subtle differences in the sensations in your hands as you move around the surface of this plate or clock. And what we're doing is we're simply tuning in to that which is already there. We're not creating energy. You know, Newton said it. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. So we're not creating, or we're just simply observing it. So allow yourself just to play with the space and use that clock just for a reference point to see if you notice any differences. Okay, relax your hands, put your hands at your side. We're gonna, if I have time a little bit later, I'd like to introduce you to a different type of an exercise, but this is the way we begin to tap in. And so I want you to recognize that it's really that simple. It's really that simple to become aware of what exists. So let's take a moment to really ask the question of what is healing? Well, when you actually look at the derivation of the word healing, it actually, the etiology of the word, it comes from wholeness. Healing, the word healing in English is derived from the word wholeness. And therefore, to be healed is to become whole. But the truth is, we were never less than whole. And yes, we may experience the perception of being less than whole, but it's an illusion. You know, I don't know how many mediums there are on this call or watching the replay, or perhaps those of you who know or have had personally a near-death experience. But I can tell you from those two groups of people, one of the things that I've learned is that when we reemerge into spirit, we leave behind the challenges of our human existence. You know, you hear about the experience on the other side as being one of a complete release of the things, the burdens and the densities that we had in our human life. But the truth is, we don't become spirit at the end of our life. Our vantage point shifts to our spiritual essence. So what's happening is that reconnective healing, we believe, is reconnecting us to that pure state of wholeness that exists on that spiritual level. And we can tap into that. And what's so interesting is that for years, both in allopathic practices of medicine and even in energy healing, we often, in the practice of healing, we turn our attention to fixing problems. We try to clear blockages, or we focus on that which is lacking or limiting in someone's life. And we try to find that space to bring about healing. But through the reconnective healing experience, we recognize and acknowledge and honor that that wholeness exists within. And you might have heard the expression, where our attention goes, energy flows. So the concept here is that when we withdraw our attention from, in this case, on a professional level, from our clients' challenges, and in fact, in reconnective healing, we don't even ask or seek to know what those challenges are. But instead, what we do is we allow the dominant vibration to be that of the harmony, the balance, and yes, the wholeness that exists within. And so it's a new perspective of bringing our attention through the process of recognition of wholeness, recognition of balance and harmony that exists at that pure essence level, and allowing that, like I said, to become the dominant vibration in the interaction. And there seems to be a very significant shift that takes place when we do that. So let's talk about another concept in the world of healing, and as a matter of fact, in the world of our lives, and that is the concept of love and fear. You know, it has been said that every action, thought, or movement that we make in our lives is coming from one of those places. You might have heard that, right? That there's love and fear. It's the dichotomy in the world, in the universe. And I ask you, where do you think healing resides? I think it's an easy question, right? Healing and the act of healing, the desire to heal and to be an agent of healing, it's a very loving act. It's a beautiful expression of our love and who we are. But often, especially in the energy healing world, there is a common practice, And that is the practice of protection and protecting oneself. We protect ourselves with words and phrases. We protect ourselves with rituals or even objects. Um, but I ask you, what do you think motivates the act of protection? And when you start to really contemplate it, you will discover that there is an element of fear. I mean, have you ever tried to protect yourself from something that you do not fear on some level? Uh, and that's not to say that there is not an aspect of care and nurturing that comes into the practice of protection. Like, for example, if you're at a baseball game with a small child and a ball is flying towards them and you protect them, obviously you can make the argument that that's a very loving thing to do to protect your child. But at the same time, there's also an element of fear that goes into protection. So in the energy healing equation, what are we communicating with protection? Often, whether it's verbal or not, often it's, I see you holding something negative that I don't want to get. Or perhaps it's, I need to maintain a certain level of separation from you during this process. But what if we recognize that in our healing interaction, if we can remove fear from the equation, even on just subtle levels, and have the experience reside 100% in the loving nature of the healing interaction, then we find that we enter into a new state, a vibrational state, where there aren't any kind of cross vibrations of love and fear. And when we release fear from the equation, healing is, it's just about love. And so the release of fear-based protections is actually a major component of the reconnective healing experience. And we are finding practitioners for years who have been incorporating this approach into working with other individuals. They're finding that there's a liberation in that practice, and unlike maybe what our fears might have led us to suspect, that we are finding that we are still very much whole and very much nurtured in the process. And so it's something that is perhaps a different perspective that might be giving us a glimpse into what is possible. So let me once again shift to yet another aspect of reconnective healing that really redefines the way we consider what's taking place in this interaction. Traditionally, it's very common to hear practitioners of energy work talk about sending healing. I send a healing, or I'm sending energy to my client or to someone else. But let's take a moment to think about this for a second. When we send from one place to another, we also must therefore acknowledge and imagine that we are separate from that other individual. Because if energy is going to flow from one place to another, then there has to be some kind of a gap that needs to be overcome. And so when we send, we inadvertently, it's a loving act, don't get me wrong, but inadvertently, we're affirming our separation from one another. So some of you may be familiar with the concept, or you heard the concept of the holographic universe. This is a construct that asserts that we are all reflections of one another and all reflections of a universal whole. So for example, you might have heard the expression that contained within every drop of water is the entire ocean. So that's the concept of the holographic universe. So I ask you, what if we were so deeply connected that we existed as one beyond the apparent boundaries of time and space? I believe that we are. And within the reconnective healing exchange, we are not serving as an intermediary between the universe and our client, but instead we are allowing ourselves to experience a deep sense of oneness where those connections are already present. They're already there. And so what we do is we come into that state where our attention really becomes the doorway for that individual to experience that deep, direct access to their personal sense of connectivity, the connection to their pure essence. And instead of imagining ourselves as a conduit between source energy, for example, and our clients, we instead recognize that we stand as a catalyst to ignite the experience of connection through our own. As we experience our connection and we see one another as a reflection of ourselves, we're just getting to kind of bathe in that awareness that we are not only connected to one another, but we're connected to all that is. And you know what's so interesting is that many energy workers often talk about this experience of feeling drained after facilitating energy healing sessions. I hear many practitioners of energy work talk about they saw many clients in one day and they're wiped out, they're drained. And I wonder how much of that is from kind of a state of maintaining this concept of sending energy and giving energy away, which may inadvertently translate to an experience of being depleted. But I will tell you, as reconnective healing practitioners all around the world have discovered, we are energized by the experience. Even multiple experiences in one day, we're energized. We feel replenished by the interaction. Eric Pearl, who discovered this beautiful experience, his book was called The Reconnection: Heal Others, Heal Yourself. That title was very purposeful because what we find is that when we become facilitators and catalysts of reconnective healing, we are enjoying our own self-healing in the process. So we are, we're replenishing as we step into this interaction, and we're discovering that we are just constantly in this receptivity, this receiving mode, and we're allowing those who we interact with to experience it as well. So once again, I'd like to try an exercise to explore a little bit of this with you. So if that's okay with you, I want you to once again lift your hands like we did before, and I want you to hold your hands, let your hands just face each other for a moment. And let's just begin to explore the space around you. So you can actually let your hands move out, almost as if you were at the beach and you waded into the ocean and you put your hands under the surface of the water, but you couldn't see underneath the surface of the water, so you were just exploring by letting your hands just move and just simply explore what shows up. Are you feeling any sensation, any texture? And perhaps we can keep one hand still and let the other hand do the exploration, and then maybe bring that hand to stillness and let the other hand start to explore. And then we can alternate that by letting both hands move in unison. And as we do that, I just simply want you to place your attention not only in your hands, but in your body, and just notice as you start to allow yourself to experience that which is around you, what is showing up for you? Is it subtle? Is it changing? And now let's do something a little different. I want you to continue to explore that space. We're on a Zoom call right now, and if you look at your screen, you're going to see boxes with many faces, beautiful faces that are looking back at you. I want you just to bring your attention to one of those faces. And even if it's someone who's not on their video right now, even if it's someone that just has their picture up, but I do want you to choose either a picture or a live person. And I want you to focus in on that person. And don't worry, you won't make them uncomfortable because they don't know which person you're looking at. So, so you can allow yourself to really deeply look at that person. It's one of the few times that you can deeply look in someone's eyes and they don't know that you're doing it. So I want you to deeply look at that person, and while you keep them as the center of your attention, continue to explore the space. And this is a shared space. This is part of who you are, who they are, and who you are collectively. And I want you just to, as you look into their face, I want you just to see the love in their eyes. We all have love within us. And I want you just to look at their expression on their face. And I want you perhaps even imagine, what would that person have looked like as a child? You could do it. It's a very interesting exercise. When you look at someone's face, you can actually see what the childhood version of that person must have looked like. And I invite you to do that, just to explore the innocence of that soul. And as you do that, what are you noticing in your hands? What are you noticing in your body as you continue to hold them as the center of your attention? And I want you also now to imagine that you're actually looking into a mirror. And before you is your reflection looking back at you. And as you do that, allow a smile to come to your face. Really allow a nice big smile to come to your face, and watch it as it grows in the mirror in front of you, because if everyone's following my directions, they're smiling too. And I want you just to see that individual as a reflection of you. And all of a sudden, you notice that there's a dissolving of the separation between you and them. And it's just one, it's just you. And as you do that, continue to just feel and notice. Let your hands just move naturally on their own, as your hands become just these really beautiful receivers of the energy, light, and information that surrounds you. What are you noticing? What are you sensing? What are you seeing in their face? Let's do this in silence just for a few moments. It's amazing what can show up in the stillness as we simply allow, as we simply notice, without trying to create an experience, without trying to create an outcome, just simply through our presence, our observations, and our deep connection to everyone and all that there is. Sometimes we want to close our eyes when we do exercises like this, but I'm going to encourage you to explore what it's like to use your eyes as windows, so you can observe and really take in the person that you're with, and really connect on a very deep level. Now, reconnective healing can be facilitated at a distance, even when you can see the person that's in front of you. But it is a special opportunity when you have this direct interaction, this opportunity to gaze towards, with someone else. Okay, let's bring our hands to a rest on our lap. Take a moment. Beautiful. Thank you so much for exploring that with me. You know, when we allow ourselves to remain in a state of receiving throughout the experience, our attention just simply settles there. And we're in a flow with these healing frequencies. And like the mirror that we just explored, we become the reflection for one another. We begin to receive simultaneously the gift of becoming the healing itself, this healing evolution that's taking place within both of you or any of you. And we start to really recognize a very important truth. And I really believe that in the practice of reconnective healing, we are recognizing that there is a great power in affirming that we are enough. We don't have to add anything to who we are. As a matter of fact, in the practice of reconnective healing, we release all forms of external objects and other forms of support for the healing process. This includes the use of crystals or pendulums or amulets. I'm not saying those things are bad. I'm just saying that in this reconnective healing experience, when we allow ourselves just to recognize that we are enough and we don't have to enhance who we are, we don't have to add to who we are, we recognize that we start to really embody a true sense of worthiness. And that becomes an assertion to the universe that we are, in fact, enough as we are. And I love that aspect of reconnective healing. I love that it is teaching us ways that we can show up in this world and ways we can show up in our day-to-day interactions. So I want to just review some of the things that we talked about this evening. You know, when we think about reconnective healing and the process, it is very much a process of releasing and allowing. We release our focus on lack, limitation, and challenges, remembering that we are whole. We release the notion that we are less than enough. We know that we're worthy. We release the need to protect ourselves and create separation and perhaps dilute inadvertently the love that the healing process truly represents. We release the need to be the intermediary between someone else and their direct access to their source. At its core, the reconnective healing experience is a doorway through which we return to our true essence. It's an interaction between our humanity, the body-mind experience, and our multidimensional eternal self, the I am. And it's a facilitation through the engagement with frequencies of energy, light, and information that nurture us and remind us that we exist beyond space and time. We are formless. We are timeless beings. And this very awareness then shows up in every aspect of our lives. I mean, imagine if we regularly experienced ourselves as whole, as worthy, as one with all, as constantly in our receiving, as living, as love itself. For me, reconnective healing is constantly reaffirming this knowingness in my life and in the lives of others. And I feel blessed to be able to share it with others and show them that this is accessible to every human being on this planet, regardless of their age, their background, their beliefs, their, anything that can make us different. It doesn't matter. This is accessible to all. So before I open up to questions, because I know we're not too far from the hour, I just wanted to share with you, if anyone's wondering, just how easy it is to go through what we call the training process to bring this into your life, either for personal benefit or to even do it professionally. And by the way, when I say personal benefit, it's never just benefiting you, because when you embody this sense of expansion, it impacts everyone across the planet, including those, of course, that are in day-to-day interaction with you and beyond. But here's the thing that's so fascinating about reconnective healing is that because it's an exploration of the natural state of who we are, it's not a long process to get there, because it's just coming home to, and because there are no techniques or rituals to learn, it's a very automatic, very just transcendent experience that happens very, very shortly. And it used to be that reconnective healing was taught in a long extended weekend that would last about 5 days. It would start on a Friday night and then end on a Tuesday night. But in the last, I think it's been about 4 years now, maybe, we actually split the training into an online component and then a live component, which allows people to begin their exploration and their training at home immediately without waiting for a program, a live event to be there. And so so Dr. Pearl and Jillian Fleer, the head of Insight and Development for the Reconnection Organization, the two of them put together a brilliant online course that you can do at your own pace, at your own comfort, in the own comfort of your own home. It's about 10 plus hours of material that you can do quickly, you can do it slowly, you can do it repetitively, as much as you'd like. And we call it the portal. It's really the online essentials of reconnective healing. And so that's the first step. And it's really an introduction to more exercises like we just did tonight, as well as diving into a little bit more of the history, Dr. Pearl's story, some of the insights some of the science that I tapped into, but giving you some even a deeper understanding of the scientific awareness around this interaction. It's really beautifully done. It's a very engaging, very cinematically very beautiful program. And so that's available to anybody immediately. And then once that's completed, the next step, of course, in the training process, like as I'm sure you would imagine, is to have a personal experience receiving reconnective healing professionally. And like I said, reconnective healing can be facilitated at a distance, and there are practitioners all over the world. And there's actually a directory on Dr. Pearl's website where you can look up who's in your area, and you can actually experience reconnective healing yourself. And that is, of course, a part of the training process, because in order to become a facilitator, you do have to have some experience knowing what it's like to be the client in the equation. And then there's the live weekend event, and the weekend is now just a Saturday and a Sunday, which I think is much more convenient for most people because it allows people to kind of just carve out a weekend. And the very next U.S. program happens to be the one that I'm teaching in New York, close to Manhattan, right across from LaGuardia Airport. So if somebody flies in, you just take a little shuttle over to the hotel, and that's going to be on May 15th and 16th. I can talk to Alice about how I can get that information to everybody. I don't know if somebody wants to certainly reach out to me directly. I can forward that along. I could put a link in the comments. I don't know however you feel would be best, but I want it to be accessible to you all.
A link in the chat would be perfect.
Okay.
That way everybody can access it themselves. Yeah, that would be perfect. Plus, it'll go on our website too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that right now. Wait, that's not it. Hold on one second. I think I have it just off to the side. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoopsie. Just opened up the link. Let me try. So I would love to, Alice, if we can open it up to questions as I pop this link in the chat.
Right.
There we go. And the link here is you can learn more about everything I described as far as the training process, or you're very welcome to reach out to me directly. I'll actually put my email in the chat as well, so you can shoot a message over to me, and we could be happy to talk with you more about it. But I want to thank you all for your very undivided attention. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I would love to hear any of your thoughts or questions.
I'm sure somebody has a question. I can hear it. I can hear the wheels going.
Speechless.
Right. And once in a while, Rob, I think sometimes people with energy healing have a very hard time believing there's nothing to this. It's anybody can do it. It's available to all, because it's basically God's energy, and we're a little piece of God, so we can access God's energy. All we really need to do is to have, a little bit of training to propel us forward. So
little guidance, right? A little guidance to discover that which is already, our birthright. It's so yeah, 100%.
Right.
Oh, I see a question in the chat. Does your reconnective healing get activated by others doing reconnective healing sessions on you? That is an excellent question. Is it Diana? Am I pronouncing it right?
Yes, it's Diana.
Oh, Diana, thank you so much for that question. So, reconnective healing, like I said, because it is so natural to who you are, you don't need anyone to necessarily activate it within you because it is you. It is already who you are. So what you actually have the opportunity to do by having, let's just say, a healing session or even having this conversation tonight, there's a process that I call recognition. And it's not an activation. Activation implies that you depend on someone to be there and do this for you. But what we're finding is that when you get a chance to be introduced to these truths through vibration and even through information that you're receiving, there is a process of recognition that just arises within you. So I actually move away from the concept of activation with reconnective healing because of this notion that you need someone to do something for you, someone special. You are special, and it's going to naturally arise just by having someone turn your attention and awareness to it. Does that make sense, Diana?
Yes, that was helpful. Thank you. Another reason why I was asking this, I got my certification previously to do Reiki healing.
Yes.
And so I know it's two different energies that I'm channeling, right?
Well, what I would say is that it's not two different energies. I think that, whether it's Reiki, Qigong, Jin Chin, I mean, any of the energy healing, traditional energy healing practices that exist on the planet, they all have to do with life force energy. You heard Alice talk about God's energy. So what we believe is happening with reconnective healing is that we are, in fact, accessing the Reiki energy. We're accessing the Qigong energy, but there seems to be by releasing the formation of technique and ritual in the process, we suspect that we are actually accessing everything that exists around us beyond the perimeter and boundaries of the rituals and techniques themselves. So I believe that that through reconnective healing, we are tapping into those same vibrations, but it seems that we might actually be expanding even further into other aspects of the spectrum of energy, light, and information, like I said. But I wouldn't compartmentalize it as to different. I think it's a new approach to opening ourselves up to access. Okay, there's more
That's
healing.
helpful.
I
So
mean, there's more
much.
questions. Okay, so, oh, Michelle, I recognize that name. I'm so glad you're going to be joining us in May. Thank you so much for being with us tonight as well. Um, can you do self-healing? Elizabeth, that is a fantastic question. And there was a two-part answer to that question. Do you remember when I said that when you facilitate reconnective healing for another, that you are experiencing healing for yourself? That is 100% the truth. So anytime that you allow someone to experience this and you offer the opportunity to experience reconnective healing, you are experiencing self-healing. But I'm also going to say that when you don't have someone to offer it to, you can absolutely experience self healing. And in the training program, we actually go into more depth as to what that's all about. But I'm going to tell you right now the exercises that we did tonight, that was partly an exercise in your self healing. So I'm going to encourage you to pay attention to how you're feeling later tonight. Pay attention to what shows up in the days ahead. This was an energy interaction that we had tonight. Make no mistake about it. But that's really a fantastic question. I'm glad you asked it. Um, so yeah. And the second part of your question was, how would it be done? And again, during our training, we expand upon that, but these explorations of just feeling, noticing, interacting with what's around you, allowing yourself to feel what's present, that is part of the process. And again, we expand on that in the training, but that's really important for you to understand. Let's see what else we have here. Will there be a replay of the Zoom meeting? I believe, Alice, there is, correct?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
There, what it does is it's recorded from the moment that we come online, and it goes on the Rays of Healing website. So it's raysofhealingchurch.org. and it's on there in ad perpetuum. So it will be there
Beautiful.
forever.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Alice, for making all of these evenings available to to a larger audience. It's really fantastic. Let's see, Stefano. I see we all have this energy. What actually happens since we have to go to class? Seems there's some kind of transmission that happens. That's such a great question. You know, what we have found, I can speak specifically about reconnective healing. What we have found in the last few decades, with reconnective healing is that there is something very special that does take place during the live training program. And again, it's not an activation, but it is. There's something. I mean, I can only speak from. I remember my very first time when I went to Toronto those years ago. When I showed up at that training program, I think what was so unique was not only did I get a chance to witness how I was interacting and impacting those around me, but I was watching and witnessing what was happening for others and what they were experiencing in their interactions. And there is something very, very special that takes place that actually brings us just to a new level of awareness and knowingness and confidence that this is who we are and what we can access. And as a matter of fact, there was a study, I'm not going to go into detail, but there was a study by Dr. William Tiller, a Stanford University professor emeritus, one of the really giants in the field of quantum physics. And he actually did several repeated studies with Dr. Pearl at his training programs years ago. And he actually measured what was happening during the training and what was happening in the room, not with individuals, but the actual energetics of the physical space. And he saw some amazing shifts that were going on an energetic level with the actual, what he called the free thermodynamic energy of the room that he felt was just unbelievable. He hadn't seen that before. So there's definitely something that goes on in that training program. So let me see, what else do we have here? What's sensation I supposed to have or feel while I'm practicing reconnective healing? Great question. So I'm just going to remove the word supposed to, or the phrase supposed to from that question, because there is no supposed to. There's no, we release expectation when we step into this experience. We are having a unique personal interaction with ourselves and the frequencies of energy, light, and information that are surrounding us. So the only thing I would say that you're supposed to do is allow yourself to simply observe what shows up. And it comes in so many different forms. Sometimes it's subtle and quiet. Sometimes it's just a stillness. Sometimes it's an active sense, a surge of energy flowing through our bodies. It takes so many forms. When I work with clients and I do a debriefing at the end, which is the traditional model of our interactions, is when we're done, we allow our clients to reflect back to us anything that showed up that they noticed. I have worked with thousands of people over the last 8 years, and I can tell you that every time it's different. Every time it's new. I am always so excited to hear what my clients have to share because I never know what they're going to describe to me. So it's very unique. Let's see. What's my next question? Is there a prerequisite for the Maid training class? Excellent, Crystal. Yes, there is 1.5 prerequisites. The first prerequisite for the Maid training is completing the online course, because that is the kind of your introduction to the foundation of reconnective healing. Like I mentioned, it used to be all done in a 5-day weekend, but since we broke it up, we're asking you to do the first half of the training online in the comfort of your home. So that's the first step. We call the entire process the One Experience, ONE. And that one experience, which is, I gave you the link for it in the chat, that gives you access to both the online course and the live training. So that is a prerequisite. And then I said 1.5 prerequisites. The other prerequisite is that you've experienced at least one professional session receiving reconnective healing. And I call it a half because it could either be done prior to your weekend, or you could do it while you're there, because our team of instructors that will be joining you will be offering some sessions in the morning during the lunch break, which is a long extended lunch break where you can fit in a session, or after in the evening. So those are prerequisites for completing the training. So Kelly, let's see what you said. I'm sorry? Okay, hi Kelly.
Hi.
I see you there. So you said, I just wanted to say to the participants that I have done all the trainings and last one with you, and that I highly recommend the program and the amazing experience. I would love to comment on the results. Can unfold over time, and the client sometimes doesn't make the long-term, the long-term connection, but the changes happen, and I have learned to notice but not be attached. Oh my gosh, Kelly, you are speaking the gospel. Can you tell me more about what you want to share with the group?
Yeah. This concept of healing, some people say, oh, I don't need healing. I don't have anything wrong with me. And it's not, we all need energy upgrades. So I try to kind of introduce them to the concept of just needing an upgrade in their energy field. And I notice over time when they do these sessions that their life really improves. And I've seen like people fall in love and they meet the right guy and things like, but they never associate it back to the fact that they were having reconnective healing sessions, because it's not really a healing. It's like their life got vibrationally upgraded. And so I just have to let it go. I see that their life is better. And I know that those sessions added something to their life to go in that direction. And you just don't always get the kudos because, and all of that. So you have to let go a lot and just shed the love, share the love with people and just have that be enough.
That is so beautifully stated, Kelly, and I thank you for hitting those really important points. And I'll just give you a quick little example that one of our lead teachers years ago, when he talked about his first introduction to Reconnective Healing. I don't know if Kelly, if you know who Adam Teipel is. But he was yeah, he had done a lot of the head instruction for Reconnective Healing from the very beginning with Eric, and he told, I thought, a brilliant story that I continue to retell, where he had his first Reconnective Healing experience, and he walked away and he said, yeah, I don't really know that I noticed any significant changes in my life. And then one day he was driving in his car and he had an itch on the back of his neck. This was like months later after his Reconnective Healing experience. And so he starts scratching at the back of his neck. And then he looks at his hand and he actually drew blood. He actually scratched and drew blood from scratching his neck. And he said, that was really unusual. I don't know how I did that. And then he looked more closely at his fingernails. And his fingernails were really long. And if your fingernails are really long and you scratch real deep, yes, you can scratch yourself. Why was this so significant? Because Adam knew that for years, he had bitten his fingernails down to the quick from anxiety. He had that anxious, he was always biting his fingernails. And it wasn't until that moment he realized that he no longer had, that anxiety wasn't part of his experience. He wasn't biting his fingernails anymore, and his nails kept growing because of it. Yeah. And I think it's just a great example of what you're saying, Kelly, is that it took sometimes an experience that kind of, opened your eyes and says, wow, something has shifted. And it might be under the surface and you might not realize it. So
yeah, it evolves over time, I've noticed sometimes.
Absolutely. And it is an unfolding. And I'm going to tell you that I continue to see the shifting and changing in my life that I know when I kind of map this on a timeline. I look at when I met Reconnective Healing and where I am now and the things that have shown up in my life and the shifts. And it's life looks very different, from the before and after. Stefano, you said, I've had 2 distance healings with Dr. Eric and Jillian themselves, and it was clearly a shift that was noticed by me and my wife. There was a major letting go. Absolutely. And here's the thing. Those, it's great that you had that experience working with Eric and Jillian. And I'm going to tell you that one of the things that I so admired about Eric's journey and Eric's message is that he always reminded us from the beginning that what he does and what he can do is not any more unique or special that what we can do. And people will come up to him at training programs and say, I want a healing session with you, Eric Pearl. And he'll tell them, you're going to get just as much from any of the practitioners that you see before you today. And I thought that was such an empowering message to remind us all that, you know, there are so many gurus out there that have these amazing discoveries about what they can do, but how many of them are willing to remind others that this is who you are as well? It's not about stepping into the look what I can do. And I'm going to tell you, Eric Pearl could have easily kind of closed up shop and said, I'm gonna put myself out there as this amazing, miraculous healer, because he was having these really amazing experiences with his clients. But he found a greater message, and that was, he was learning that he could show people how to find this in themselves. And that's a message that I continue to want to share with everyone. And tonight it's with all of you, and I really appreciate having that opportunity. So thank you. And thank you, Heidi, for that beautiful comment.
Thank you. All right. And I just, as I was listening to you, Rob, the words of Christ came through me, that all this and more you shall do. So then, and I thought, oh, Christ walked on water. He raised people from the dead. All this and more we shall do. We really need that reminder, you know, that we are the Christ consciousness. We are that little piece of God, you know, and that's what this brings, which is great, you know. So, and I thank you so much for you constantly, again, reinforcing it for us.